Alright, now we're going to look at some trinomial factoring, okay? Again, this is one of those things I'm going to show you. It's tough to do. There is an algorithm that was in the previous pages that you can use to help yourself, alright? But I'm going to take a look and see if I can factor these the way I was taught, which is little guess and check. Remember when we're factoring trinomials, if the singleton term is 1, like all of these right here, a equals 1, you're going to say what multiplies to give you the last term, adds to the term in the middle. The sign on the end determines if they're the same or different. If it's positive, they're the same, so they're both pluses, or both minuses. If they are different, it's when this is a negative, because in order to get a negative, you have to multiply by a positive and a negative. Right? Let's take a look at this one right here. We know because of the situation, it's going to be what multiplies give me x squared. That's x and x. Things that multiply to give me 8. 8 and 1, and 4 and 2. Well, if I look at that 8 and 1, if you add them together, give me 9, give me 7 otherwise if you subtract them. If you add these together, you might get 6, which is more of a likely possibility. Since this is positive and this is positive, they're all positive. So 8 can be 4 and 2. And because it was both positives there and everything's positive, it's a plus and a plus. You can check this by first, outer, inner, last. Okay, distributing the x to the x, you get x squared. X times 2 is 2x. 4 times x is 4x. 4 times 2 is 8. 4x and 2x give me 6x. So it does check. Or you can check all of these. All right? Take a look at the next one. X squared minus 3x minus 18. All right? It's negative, so that means the signs are going to be different. There's an x times x to give me x squared. There's no thing in there. It's going to be a plus and a minus. I know that because I got to get a minus there. 18 can be 9 and 2, 6 and 3, 18 and 1. That's not going to give me that 3. But if I take a look, 6 and 3 are most likely the candidates because 6 minus 3 is 3. All right? Now, because it's negative, the bigger one's going to be negative. So 6 has got to be negative. That's got to be positive. If you check it, x times x is x squared plus 3x. X times x is x squared. 3 times x is 3x. X times negative 6 is minus 6x. 3 times negative 6 is minus 18. And then if you combine those like terms, you get x squared minus 3x minus 18. Checks out perfectly. All right, harder one. Let's go right to the gusto right here. A to the 2x plus 7, a to the x minus 8. All right, things that multiply to give me a to the 2x. Remember, they're going to be the same thing, okay? Well, when you multiply, you add the exponents. So the trick to this is, also the trick is there's an a to the x there. That's a pretty big hint. It's got to be a to the x. A to the x is a times a to the x is a to the x times a to the x, which you add them together, which is a to the 2x. All right? Now, I need an 8 here, okay? And I need a 7 here. 8 and 1 are the most likely. Remember, 4 and 2 are going to give me 6 like we did earlier. So 8 and 1. Now, if I take a look, the bigger number is positive, so this has to be the positive, and this has to be the negative. Okay? And we have it right there. Taking a look at the next one. Here, if you look at the powers, they all go by a multiple of 2. This is x to the 4th, x squared, and it's hidden, but it's x to the 0. Right? So they're all even. So in that case, we can look for factors. What multiplies to give me x to the 4th? Well, that actually is going to be x squared. And that's nice because we need an x squared in the middle. That's the big key. Things that multiply that give me 24. Well, I say to myself, well, there's a lot of different options, but I need a 10. So if I did 6 times 4, that's a possibility. And also I can do 12 and 2. So I have choices. Okay. Now here's the key. I need the bigger number to be positive, right? And then we're going to have to subtract. It's going to be a plus and a minus because these signs have to be different. Now, if I choose the bigger number to be positive, that'd be 6 and 4. 6 and 4, that's 6x minus 4x, which is 2x. Not going to work. If I do this one, it's going to be 12x squared, and then a 2x, and minus 2x squared, which is going to give me my 10x. Remember, you can FOIL and check. Right? Just because the order of them is backwards doesn't mean anything to us. So in this one here, I can factor it. It's easy to see the x squared here, but one of them's got to be positive and one of them's got to be negative. So I'm going to make that one negative and that one positive. Okay, things that multiply to give me 15. Well, 5 and 3 look like the candidate, especially when I need to. 5 minus 3 is 2. All right, now the real question is what's getting what sign? Now, if I decide to use the 5 here, 5 times negative x is negative 5x. And then we're going to have 3x, which is going to give me 5x, negative 5x, plus 3x, which is negative 2x. But we want positive 2x, so guess what? That's not going to work. You've got to be careful. Over here, I'm going to flip it. So I'm going to make this one here 3x, or 3 plus x, and then this one 5 here. Because that's minus 3x plus 5x. Which is 2x. That's what I wanted, right? So there's our factored form there. Alright, we keep it going. And you can see we get into a little bit more dicey situations, but nothing we can't handle. 24, okay? And if you notice, this is similar to this one right here. Just because it's not an x doesn't make a difference. Let's start with the last term. Plus and a minus, because the signs are different. Y to the A, Y to the A. Okay, it mimics this right up here. Just because it's an A, no different variable doesn't mean a difference. Right? Things that multiply to give me 24. 6 and 4 are the most likely candidates because I need a 2 here. Alright, the bigger number should be positive. So 6 and 4. You just notice how that's 6y and minus 4y. We get it. Hey, we got some different variables here. Shouldn't be a big difference. The first term is easy. You get x and x. Better give me 6y squared, so I know it better give me a y. But I need to get 6 multiplied together. Well, 3 and 2 and 6 and 1. But then I need a 5. Well, again, 6 and 2 give me, or 6 and 1 give me 5 if I subtract. Okay. But they're all positive, so I have to add. So I'm going to say 3 and 2 is most likely the answer. 3 and 2. The signs have to be the same. They're all positive. And that's 3 times 3y times x, which is 2y times x, which is 2xy. And the other one is 3xy, which gives me 5xy, which is what we wanted. We have it right there. Alright, last one here. X times what? Again, we have an x and x and a y and a y because I can see the x squared and the y squared. 10. 5 and 2, or 10 and 1. Now 5 and 2 are going to give me that 3. I like that. But it's all negative. One of them is going to be negative. The bigger one's got to be negative. 5 and 2. If you do this, each minus 5xy and your plus 2xy gives you your negative there. So those are A is 1. We got more here we don't need to worry about. But let's take a look when we have A doesn't equal 1. This is where the game gets a little bit harder. That's the same problem. Alright, this is when A doesn't equal 1. Looking at these, I always say to myself, if the last term is easy to look at, use that to help. Like over here, you can see the 3's here, and the 3, 3, and the 2, and the first 3. They're easy to spot that those can't break down. It's got to be 3 and 1. Although the first number's got to break down, which is going to be the problem. Right? So, let's take a look at the first one. I have factor into 2 pieces. I know it's got to be a 3 and a 1 because that's the only way you can do that. Right? Everything is positive, so it's got to be all positive. Now I need to factor the x part out. Well, I got 4x squared. It can either be 4 and 1 or 2 and 2. Alright, so I know it's an x. It's just the coefficient. If I do 4 and 1, put a 4 here and a 1 here, it's going to be 4x times 1, which is 4x, and then 3x, and that's 7, but we needed 8. Okay, if I flip it around, 1 and 4, 4 times 3 is 12. 12, oh, that's even higher. So most likely we're going to go with 2 and 2. If I try 2 and 2, 2x times 1 is 2x, 2x times 3 is 6x, 6x, and 2x give me 8x, and that works. Alright, taking a look at this one, This one has even less options because the last one has to factor to 3 and 1, but the first thing has to factor to 3 and 1. Now here's the catch. I know it's got to be x and x. The signs have to be different, so we can play with that. This right here, the first term here, cannot, if it's 3 and 1, this cannot be 3. Because there's a 3 common. We could have factored that out earlier, and our problem would have solved that. You can never do that. Okay. So what's nice is it only leads me, instead of 3 and 1, I have to do 1 and 3. Okay, so I actually have to put in front of here 3x. Alright, and this is my 1. Now my next question is I need to determine which is positive, which is negative. Well, I better have a lot of negatives, so 3 times 3 is 9. I probably want that to be negative, so I'm making that negative. This one has to be positive because the signs have to be different. That's negative 9x plus 1x, which is 8x. Okay? Again, tough to see. You got to just break it down. Over here, again, I'm going to use the advantage that I know this has got to be 1 times 2. Right? The signs have to be different. Now, if you notice, oh, it's got a negative in there. Well, if it's got to be different, it's got to be negative. All right. Odds are 2 might do it, but sometimes the first term can adjust it. Okay. And to get 2 negatives in there, or to get this, they have to be both negative. Okay. Any negative there, you can't have them both positive. Right? So now I need to break 6 down. 6 and 1 or 3 and 2. All right. Well, we know it's an x in there. If it was 3 and 2, it would have to be 2 and 3 because you couldn't put a 2 here, or 6 and 1 that way. If we tried 6, we put a 6 in there to start. 6 and 1. This would multiply to give me 6 times that's 6x squared. 6 that's minus 12x minus 1x, which is 13, which is not what we want. Okay, so that's not going to be a good answer. Right, so we'll get rid of that. So 6 and 1 didn't work. 3 and 2 have to work. I have to make this 3. This one has to be 2. 3x times 2x is 6x. That's good. It's minus 3x in the middle and minus 4x. Oh, there's my 7. Perfect. Over here is where we get even more complicated. But again, 5 doesn't have much you can factor to. 5. Well, 2a, remember we got that as x to the a and x to the a. Okay. 8 has 8 and 1, 4 and 2. Okay. We have options. Well, the 6 is probably going to be my giveaway because, well, 8 times something, it's going to be 40 or 1, and 5 times 1 is 5, 8 and 5. Oh, that's 3, that ain't 6. Right? So I'm going to probably go with 4 and 2. Now, this is where it gets tricky. If I do 4 here and 2 here, the 2 is going to multiply the 5 to give me 10. 4 and 10 now, oh, that's 6. 4 and 2. Alright? One of them's got to be negative. Well, the negative better be the thing that multiplies can be something smaller. Okay? 2 times 5 is 10. This is 4. So this one has to be the negative and this has to be positive. We check it. Negative 4, 8, or x to the a. 10 x to the a. That's 6 x to the a. Well, that's what I wanted. Good check. Over here, we try it again. This one's got even more problems because the 6's can be factored in way different ways. Okay. Most likely, most people are thinking 3 and 2 again. Well, if I do 3 and 2 and 3 and 2, that would be nice for both of them. But remember, the 3's can't stay together and the 2's can't stay together, so they have to be flip-flopped. All right. So I know it's x and x. If I try 3 and 2, I have to figure out what's the coefficients. So if I try this one, well, this one has to be its opposite. It couldn't be the same. So now I have to figure out which one, what's the signs. Well, the signs have no choice. It's all negative in the middle. And this is positive, so they have to be both negative. That's negative 9x, negative 4x, which is negative 13x. All right, last but not least, let's take a look at this one. 6x again. Well, I'm going to go with 3 and 2 most likely. 12, 4, and 3 are the other most likely candidates, especially with the 3's and the 4's being close to that because they're going to subtract out to give me 1. Okay. Notice how this has got to have an x and a y now because the other one is y squared, an x and a y. Signs are different. Oh, that's no fun. We got to try and see what happens. Well, let's see. If I try 3 here and 2 here, that'll give me the 6. Okay. But then I need to multiply, and this is where it gets nasty. Well, if I try this one is 4 and 3, this can't be 3, and it can't be 4, so this would have to be 4, and this would have to be 3. Alright? That's 8xy and 9xy. Oh, that's perfect. We just need it to be negative, or we just need to be positive. So the bigger one here, 3 times 3 is 9. That one's 8. That one's got to be positive because it's bigger, negative, and that works out. Okay? So these get tough, but just try your best and see what happens. Talk to you later.